Your family is your fortress. Or is it just a beautiful illusion? He thought he had everything: a cozy home, 3 wonderful children, a wife who greeted him at the door with a warm smile. Every day was almost predictably happy, a routine that many would consider dull, but for him, it was perfect. A peaceful life where everything seemed unshakable. But what if a single decision destroys everything that took years to build? When your wife, without warning, decides to become a surrogate mother for her sister, and tells you about it as if it were just a fact, not even a discussion. You don't agree, but your opinion no longer matters. Betrayal, disappointment, anger. What do you do when you realize that the person you trusted the most chose someone else's needs over your feelings? Will you continue living as before, closing your eyes to everything? Or will you start fighting for your right to be respected? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. When I married Layla, I was convinced she was my forever. For 6 years, our life together had a steady rhythm, maybe not thrilling, but safe and full. We raised 3 amazing kids, our twins and their older sibling, who became the center of everything we did. We settled in a quiet suburb, where the streets were calm and the lawns were always freshly mowed. Thinking back on those days, it feels like we were wrapped in a warm, protective bubble, untouched by anything truly painful. Evenings were filled with the gentle hum of family life, soft laughter drifting through the rooms, the twins babbling in their cribs, and our oldest stumbling through those uncertain toddler steps. Whenever I walked through the front door, Layla would be there to greet me, her smile lighting up the whole space. She'd throw her arms around me, toss out a playful complaint about dinner chaos or a diaper blowout, and for a while, it felt like we had it all. Everything seemed steady, whole. The thought that it could all come crashing down never even occurred to me, until one decision shattered everything we'd built. That single choice demolished our marriage like a wrecking ball, leaving behind nothing but resentment, heartbreak, and a gnawing urge for some kind of justice. I never imagined Layla could betray me so completely, but now I understand how fast love can vanish when someone decides you no longer matter. It all unraveled on one unforgettable night, when she said something that broke the very core of our relationship. Samantha, Layla's twin, and her husband Kyle had been trying to start a family for years, with no success. Their journey had been filled with setbacks. After exhausting all options, their doctor brought up surrogacy, and Layla had already made up her mind, without telling me, that she was going to carry their child. The shock wasn't just what she had chosen to do. It was the fact that she had already begun the process without ever breathing a word to me. That betrayal burned itself into my memory like a scar. We were sitting together on the couch, though emotionally, we couldn't have been further apart. Some late-night show mumbled in the background, barely noticed. Layla glanced over at me, her phone clutched tightly, and said, almost too casually, "Gavin, I've decided to do something." That tone, that quiet, settled tone, set off alarm bells. She always used it when her mind was made up, and she expected me to just accept it. A sense of dread swept over me. I muted the TV and asked, "What's going on? You seem serious." She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and then dropped the bomb. "I'm going to be Samantha's surrogate." I blinked, trying to process what she'd just said. "Wait, what do you mean?" Her voice was calm, steady. "Samantha can't get pregnant. They've tried everything, IVF, hormones, all of it. Nothing worked. The doctor recommended surrogacy. Since she and I are identical, I'm the perfect fit. I've already contacted the clinic." The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, made me want to laugh, like it had to be some weird joke. But there wasn't a hint of humor in her face. My heart started to race. "You've already started the process?" I asked, my voice dry and shaking. Are you seriously telling me you're going to carry Kyle's baby? She exhaled slowly. It's their child, genetically. I'd just be the vessel. My teeth clenched. And when exactly did you decide all this, without so much as a conversation with me? She raised her chin, defiant. I knew you'd explode. But Samantha's my sister, my twin. I can't just stand by and watch her suffer. Kyle and I have talked about this at length, and I know this is what I want. Kyle and you talked about it, I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. My chest tightened with anger. That's just great. And your husband? You kept him in the dark. Do you even realize how that feels? She rolled her eyes, irritation flashing across her face. Gavin, I understand you're upset, but it's my body. Whether or not you approve, I'm going through with this. I wanted your support. Yes, I should have told you sooner, but I knew you'd try to stop me, and I couldn't let that happen. For a long moment I couldn't speak. Rage and disbelief knotted in my throat. So this is what you expect from me? I finally asked, my voice hoarse. To sit by while you carry another man's baby under our roof and pretend it doesn't matter? Layla set her phone down and folded her arms tightly. Call it what you want. My decision is made. Samantha and Kyle are counting on me. If you love me, you'll respect that. Her words didn't ignite a shouting match. Instead, they stirred a colder, heavier kind of fury in me. Respect? I said, my voice quiet but cutting. You don't hide life-altering choices from your partner and then ask for respect. This isn't just about your body. This changes everything, for all of us. She stood up, hands balled into fists. You're acting like I'm doing this to you. I'm trying to help someone I love. If that makes me selfish in your eyes, maybe you never really knew me at all. That hit like a slap. Never the man you thought, I snapped. If you go through with this, there's no way we survive it. She didn't even hesitate. She turned and walked away, spine rigid with resolve. Then maybe we weren't as strong as I believed, she said, never looking back. I stayed there, rooted to the couch, body trembling, heart pounding in my ears. I tried to calm down, to think clearly, but it felt like something fundamental had just been torn apart. The silence in the house felt unbearable, thick with everything that had just been lost. I told myself to breathe, to stay rational, but deep inside, I already knew. We had crossed a line, and nothing would ever return to the way it was. In the days that followed, the air between us grew unbearable. Layla talked about appointments, medications, embryo transfers, as casually as if she were discussing errands. But for me, every word was another blow, another reminder that the life we had was already slipping away. The very mention of it made my stomach churn. Each time she brought it up, the weight of her decision slammed into me all over again, like a wrecking ball to everything we'd built. 2 nights after her initial confession, I walked through the front door and froze. A delivery from a fertility clinic was sitting inside our fridge. On the kitchen table, syringes, hormone vials, and a mess of forms and prescriptions. Layla sat among it all, flipping through what looked like a mountain of paperwork. What the hell is going on here? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence as I pointed at the scene. She barely glanced up. It's the hormone regimen. I have to start prepping for the embryo transfer. She explained the supplies had shown up ahead of schedule. I just stood there, stunned, trying to piece it together. And you didn't think we should have a real discussion about this? I asked, disbelief tightening every word. She gave a nonchalant shrug. We already talked. I told you. No, I said through clenched teeth. You announced it. That's not the same as talking it through. My throat felt like it was closing. You're making massive decisions without me. Do I not even matter anymore? She sighed and rolled her eyes. Stop overreacting. It's 9 months, and then the baby goes to Samantha. I'm not replacing our kids. I'm helping my sister. You can dress it up however you like, I said quietly. But if you go through with this, I'm out. I'm not staying married to someone who makes life-altering choices behind my back. Her gaze was sharp, her tone colder than I'd ever heard. If your pride can't handle it, then maybe you should leave. Pride? I snapped. This isn't about pride. This is about you steamrolling me. You made plans with Kyle. And why shouldn't I? She fired back. He's the biological father. He had a right to know. I laughed, bitter and dry. And I'm your husband. Or does that mean nothing now? Without another word, she turned back to her documents, ending the conversation like it never mattered. We're done talking, Gavin. I stood rooted to the floor, heart pounding, fully aware of just how little she grasped the damage she was doing. Part of me wanted to rip the paperwork out of her hands, to destroy all of it. But I knew how that would look. So I turned and left. Let her sit there with her decisions, trying to breathe through the pressure in my chest. That night, lying wide awake and staring at the ceiling, my mind kept circling back to the same truth. If she was determined to go through with this alone, then she could live with the consequences alone. I would file for divorce. I couldn't reconcile the idea of watching my wife carry Kyle's child, not when I had no say in any of it. When she discovered I'd spoken to a lawyer, she stormed into the living room like a thundercloud. I was sitting with our oldest, helping with homework, when she appeared. Her voice was low and venomous, trying not to alert our child quietly coloring at the table. "How could you do this?" she seethed. I gently told the kid to stay there and took Layla into the hallway. "Lower your voice," I said. "They don't need to be dragged into this." Her eyes burned into me. "So it's okay for you to go behind my back now, filing for divorce without even telling me?" My chest felt tight. "I warned you. I told you where this would end if you kept acting like I didn't matter. I'm not sitting on the sidelines of my own life anymore." Tears shimmered in her eyes, not from pain, but from rage. "We can fix this, Gavin. You just need to accept it. Then everything can go back to normal." I raised a hand, cutting her off. "No, Layla. You still don't get it. There is no normal anymore. You took a shared life and made a unilateral decision that touches everything. Our finances, our family, our future. You treated our marriage like a footnote to your sister's crisis." Her mouth trembled. "I didn't think it would come to this. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. God, you're being so cruel." A humorless laugh escaped me. "Maybe I am. But that cruelty was born the moment you made your choice without me." She looked like she wanted to scream, but no words came out. Just fury. Finally, she turned and stomped upstairs, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, heart thudding like a war drum, wishing this entire nightmare would just vanish. In our state, we're legally required to live separately for a full year before finalizing a divorce. Layla knew that. And during that time, we'd be stuck under the same roof. She refused to leave, said she didn't have anywhere else to go, that she needed rest for the pregnancy, that the kids needed stability. I didn't want to uproot them either, so I stayed put. Though stayed put hardly describes it. She moved into the guest room, sometimes crashed on the couch. I kept to the master bedroom. We existed in the same space like shadows, barely speaking, circling each other like ghosts. The kids noticed. They'd ask why we didn't eat dinner together anymore. We tried to put on a show for them, but the air between us was thick with strain. Then, one weekend, Samantha and Kyle came over. I walked into the living room to find them sprawled out on the couch, flipping through baby magazines and stroller catalogs like they were designing a nursery in our home. The kids were outside in the yard, so I didn't have to play nice. Kyle got up awkwardly from my recliner when he saw me. "Hey, Gavin," he said, clearly unsure of how to read the tension in the room. "We were simply making preparations for the baby's arrival." Layla rested her hand gently against the curve of her growing stomach. "Kyle and Samantha want it all just right," she said softly. "I need to have a few basics here so I can feel comfortable." I didn't respond, just looked at her, lips tight. Why doesn't Kyle take care of all that at his place, where the baby's actually going to live? I asked. Kyle chuckled uneasily. We thought it'd make sense to have a few things here too, at least while Layla's still expecting. I interrupted him before he could finish. Don't turn my house into some kind of baby storage unit. Layla's cheeks went pink with embarrassment. You're being ridiculous, she snapped. You really think I can just hang out at their place every time I feel nauseous or exhausted? I live here, Gavin. My jaw tensed. Yeah, you do. But that doesn't mean Kyle and Samantha can keep treating my home like it's part of their baby registry. Kyle turned toward Samantha, who stood stiff and tense behind the couch, her arms crossed. She held my gaze, cool and unwavering. Gavin, she said evenly, it's not like we're trying to take over, we're just trying to support Layla. My chest burned with anger. Oh, I get it. You want me to play along, maybe give Layla foot massages, satisfy her cravings, all for a kid that has nothing to do with me? Samantha's hands flew into the air. Seriously? We're family. This isn't about ownership, it's about being there for each other. I narrowed my eyes. That idea went out the window when you two roped Layla into this behind my back. Kyle let out a harsh sigh. Look, man, I get it. It's awkward. Awkward? I snapped. You think that scratches the surface? If you really gave a damn about Layla, you'd make her feel safe and pampered at your place. Buy everything in that catalog if it makes you feel better. But keep it out of my home. And if you keep showing up unannounced, we're going to have a serious issue. Layla shot up from her seat, fury written all over her posture. You don't get to ban them from coming here. This is my house too. I turned to her, voice flat and cold. Maybe you should have thought about that before you involved them in something this big without telling me. A heavy silence settled in the room. Then Samantha grabbed Kyle's arm. We're leaving, she muttered, her voice tight with restrained anger. They exited in a hurry. Layla whirled around to face me, jabbing a finger in my direction. You're being childish. You're pushing away the people who will be this baby's aunt and uncle. I shrugged. Better that than pretending our marriage means nothing. She turned on her heel and stormed away, leaving me alone in the smoldering ruins of everything I once understood as normal. The months that followed were bleak. Layla's pregnancy progressed. She dealt with waves of nausea, constant backaches, bone-deep fatigue. She looked to me for compassion. Gavin, can you get me some crackers? She'd ask. Or, would you bring me a pillow for my back? Every time, my answer was no. Her expression would harden, her tone sharp with disbelief. What kind of husband watches the mother of his children suffer? I'd answer without emotion. You're carrying Kyle's baby. Let him take care of you. Or call Samantha if he's busy. I have enough to manage with our own kids and this house falling apart. She'd storm away in tears, muttering about how cruel I'd become. But her crying never touched me. I'd built up emotional armor ever since she made that decision without me. She never once considered how I felt when she agreed to this, signed up to carry someone else's child without even asking. So I gave her no sympathy. She tried to appeal to my guilt. One night, she stood in our bedroom doorway, her eyes heavy with fatigue. My legs are killing me, she said softly. Would you rub them, like you did when I was pregnant with the twins? I looked at her. Tired, hopeful, desperate. My voice was flat. No. I shut the door. Even our kids picked up on the tension. One day, our oldest looked up at me and asked, Dad, how come you never hug Mom anymore? I swallowed hard and answered gently, sometimes adults don't agree on things, but I love you. I'm always going to be here for you. That innocent face made my anger twist inside. Anger toward Kyle and Samantha for dragging us into this, but mostly toward Layla for letting it happen. As her due date crept closer, her family became more involved. Her mother called, her voice thick with disdain. Gavin, I can't believe how heartless you're being. Layla is doing something amazing for her sister. How can you be so unkind? I didn't even flinch. Maybe ask your daughter why she made this choice without even talking to me first. I don't owe her anything. That child isn't mine." Then her father called, his tone much more forceful. "Listen, son," he growled over the line. "You're headed down a dark path. If you don't help Layla, you'll regret it." I smirked at the phone, though the person on the other end couldn't see my expression. "That's rich," I replied, "considering I already regret ever letting your daughter ruin my marriage. Good luck with the guilt trip." The call ended abruptly. I had no doubt her whole family saw me as some kind of villain, but I wasn't worried. Courtrooms didn't weigh emotional sob stories. They dealt in facts. And the truth was, Layla was carrying someone else's child. She'd funneled our joint funds into that pregnancy without even mentioning it. That was her doing, not mine. One of our most volatile arguments happened when she was 7 months pregnant. She came through the front door one evening, visibly drained, arms weighed down with groceries, her belly prominent. As one of the bags slipped from her grip, she pleaded, "Gavin, can you give me a hand? My back's killing me." I stood in the doorway, unmoved, arms folded. "Maybe Kyle or Samantha can help," I said, voice flat. "They're the ones who dragged you into this, right?" Her eyes glistened, a mix of sorrow and fury. "I just spent hours at the hospital for a checkup. I'm exhausted. I'm still your wife, whether you care to admit it or not." I let out a cold snort. "Not for much longer. You forfeited that title yourself." She let out a strangled noise and struggled to bring the bags in alone. A few cans spilled and clattered across the porch. I didn't move an inch. She knocked her arm against the door frame, trying to shove everything inside in one trip. When she finally dumped the groceries on the kitchen table, she turned to me, chest heaving. "You can't keep treating me this way." I raised my eyebrows. "I'm not treating you any kind of way. I've just stopped pretending to be the devoted husband you threw away." Tears began to stream down her cheeks as she cradled her stomach. "You'll hate yourself when this baby is born and you realize how cruel you've been." I laughed, dry and hollow. "Unlikely. You and that child won't be here. That's one less problem to deal with." Her breath hitched like I'd struck her. Without another word, she stormed off to the guest room. Despite everything, the house felt unbearably still. I wondered for a fleeting moment if I'd crossed a line, but every time I felt a twinge of sympathy, I reminded myself, she chose this path. She destroyed our marriage. My resentment stayed firm. Then came the night her labor began, prematurely. It was just after midnight when I heard her groaning in the hallway, then frantic knocking at my bedroom door. "Gavin," she cried, her voice thin and desperate. "My water broke. I'm in labor. Please, I need help." I opened the door. She stood there, clutching her stomach, her face contorted with pain, sweat matting her hair to her forehead. For a second, I flashed back to when we welcomed our own kids into the world, but bitterness quickly drowned the memory. "I'm not driving you anywhere," I said icily. "That's Kyle's job now." Her eyes widened in shock. "He's not answering. Samantha's phone goes straight to voicemail. I have to get to the hospital right now." I took a step back. "Then call for an ambulance." She gripped the doorframe as another contraction hit. "Gavin, don't let me go through this alone. Please." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Watch me." Her knees buckled slightly as she began to cry. "You're heartless," she whispered. I gave a slight nod of agreement. That's what happens when your feelings are stomped on by the person who's supposed to care. "Have fun with the baby. I'm going back to bed." She was sobbing when I shut the door. Through the walls, I heard her dialing, presumably for emergency services. About 15 minutes later, the flashing lights of the ambulance painted the windows red and blue as paramedics escorted her out. Guilt knocked, briefly, but I locked the door behind it. She had made her choices. That child wasn't mine. I owed her nothing. By the next morning, my phone was flooded. Dozens of calls and voicemails, most from Layla's mom. Screaming, crying, accusing me of leaving her daughter during labor. I didn't get through more than a few seconds of each message before deleting them. Layla had chosen to carry a child for her sister. She could lean on her sister's family now. Layla spent several days in the hospital. The baby, a girl, arrived prematurely, but she pulled through. Samantha, however, was also hospitalized due to complications. Kyle was running himself ragged between the two of them. Meanwhile, I went on with my routine: school drop-offs, work, dinner prep. When her mother called to inform me Layla would be returning home soon, I simply replied, "That's up to her," and hung up. I was sitting in the living room reading when she finally came through the door. She looked like a ghost, pale, drained, and she was carrying a car seat with the newborn inside. With a weary sigh, she set the carrier down and collapsed onto the couch. The baby gave a soft, weak cry, a small breathing symbol of everything that had collapsed between us. "So," I said, my tone frosty, "why is the baby here? Shouldn't she be with Samantha?" Layla shut her eyes for a moment. "Samantha's still in recovery. Kyle's barely holding it together. They asked me to look after her for a bit." I gave a sharp laugh. "They asked you? Or you just volunteered?" She shot me a look, irritation flaring behind her fatigue. "Does it matter? I wasn't going to hand her off to strangers." She was in over her head. "You should have thought this through before agreeing to carry someone else's baby," I said, my tone flat and unyielding. "Let me make one thing clear. I'm not stepping in. If the crying is too much, that's on you." She massaged her temples, a tear escaping down her cheek. "Were you always this cold, or did I make you this way?" she asked, more to herself than to me. "Something for you to think about during those 3 a.m. screaming fits," I replied, my voice devoid of empathy. "Now, if you don't mind, I have real kids to feed." She flinched, as though my words had struck her, but she didn't say anything. I left her there and walked to the kitchen to start dinner. In the weeks that followed, the baby's relentless cries haunted the nights. Layla drifted through the house like a shadow, fumbling with bottles, face pale, her energy wrung dry. She came to me again and again, her voice soft, eyes begging. Each time, I refused. One evening, her voice cracked and her hands trembled. "Just 30 minutes, she pleaded. "I need to lie down. She hasn't stopped crying." I looked straight at her and didn't flinch. "Call Kyle, or your mother." A sob escaped her lips as she backed away, the baby's screams still echoing through the house. A flicker of sympathy stirred in me, not for Layla, but for the baby. She hadn't chosen any of this. Layla had, and I wouldn't shield her from the weight of her own decisions. Her parents showed up often, angry and loud, acting like I was some kind of monster. "You're heartless," they accused. "A disgrace. What kind of husband does this?" Her father especially never missed a chance to confront me. "She's in pain," he'd growl. "She just had a baby. She needs support. You can't just wash your hands of it." I met his glare, unmoved. She should have respected my stance before going through with it. "Let Kyle handle it. Or your family. That baby isn't mine. I'm not responsible." He'd storm off, hurling insults under his breath. Their condemnation never stopped, but I met it with a quiet, icy resolve. To them, I was the villain. But the law, at least for the moment, didn't see it that way. As the divorce crept forward, my attorney presented it all. How Layla funneled money from our joint account to pay for surrogacy-related costs, even forging my signature on some forms. The evidence was clear. Layla had lied, used funds without consent, and concealed her plans from me. The judge was unimpressed, especially once the forged documents came to light. Layla's lawyer tried painting me as the heartless husband who walked out during pregnancy, but that narrative didn't hold. The baby wasn't mine, and Layla had hidden the entire plan. Ironically, Layla's twin sister and Kyle kept quiet when money came up, probably because they were just glad she hadn't drained their savings. They wanted the baby, yes, but not enough to take her full time. Samantha's health was fragile, and Kyle's job situation unstable. So the baby stayed under our roof, a daily reminder of irreversible choices, tension, and regret. As the final hearing approached, Layla's body had healed, but the exhaustion clung to her. She was caring for a child she'd never intended to raise. 2 weeks before the court date, she approached me while the baby slept in her bassinet. "I need help with expenses," she said without preamble. I didn't look up immediately. "Expenses for what?" She hesitated, then folded her arms. "My doctor says I need time to recover. I shouldn't be forced back into work this soon." I raised an eyebrow. "You're not my responsibility anymore, Layla." Her jaw tightened. "I'm still the mother of your 3 children," she snapped. "I'm not talking about the surrogacy. I need money for food, for when the kids are with me." I closed my laptop slowly. "Once the divorce is finalized, I'll pay whatever child support the court decides. But don't expect spousal support." Her eyes burned. "I deserve some stability. I sacrificed my body, my sanity, for your sister." I cut her off. "You didn't do it for me. That's the difference." Her voice trembled. "You're beyond cruel. Don't you care that I'm dealing with depression?" I looked at her calmly. "I care about our kids, but not the baby that has nothing to do with me. Not the emotional aftermath of choices you made alone. You made this bed. Now lie in it." She blinked quickly, tears clinging to her eyelashes. "You'll regret this," she whispered, shaking with grief and fury. I shook my head. "You've said that before. The only thing I regret is that we ever reached this point." She looked at the baby, then back at me. "You're not the man I married, Gavin. That version of you is gone." A quiet laugh escaped me. "And you're not the woman I married. People change, Layla." Without another word, she turned and walked away. Silence settled over the house. The baby, blissfully unaware of the war she'd been born into, slept soundly in her crib. As the court date loomed, Layla made her move. With the baby in tow, she relocated to her mother's home, intending to stay there until Samantha was fit to take on parental duties. Her departure was hurried. The sound of packing tape, shifting boxes, and soft sobs filled the air as she folded her clothes. Our children, bewildered and frightened, clung to her, asking if she was leaving for good. She knelt beside them, gently smoothing their hair, whispering reassurances, promising she would come visit, insisting her love for them hadn't changed. They listened quietly, but sorrow clung to their expressions like fog, thick and unspoken. When it was time to leave, she paused in the entryway. The baby carrier sat beside her, and she gripped a small suitcase tightly. Her gaze met mine, puffy eyes rimmed in red. "One more time, Gavin," she said, her voice rough with emotion. "Don't go through with the divorce. I can make this right. Please let me try." A pressure rose in my chest, a flicker of doubt, but it vanished. Fix it? The only real fix would be undoing what had already been done. "You can't take back what happened," I said, watching as a single tear slid down her face. "I never imagined losing you," she murmured. "All I wanted was to help Samantha." I gave a bitter nod. "Well, congratulations. You helped her, and destroyed us in the process." Without another word, she picked up the carrier and stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind her with a quiet finality that somehow sounded louder than any slam. I stood there for a while, eyes closed, letting out a long breath. For the first time in what felt like forever, a strange calm began to settle. The end was coming, and with it, release. In court, Layla sat beside her lawyer at one table, while I sat across from them with mine. Kyle and Samantha watched from the gallery, their faces taut and unreadable. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who clearly knew every detail of the case, presided with authority. Layla's attorney opened with a sympathetic account of her pregnancy, portraying Layla as abandoned and emotionally unsupported. Then it was our turn. My lawyer presented a precise timeline. Layla had moved forward with the surrogacy without my agreement, had misused shared finances, and even forged my signature to facilitate it. I had said no, repeatedly. She had bulldozed every boundary. When the verdict came, the judge's voice was calm but firm. She found Layla's actions to be a blatant violation of marital trust. Since the child wasn't mine by blood, I bore no legal or financial responsibility. As for alimony, denied, especially in light of the financial misconduct. Custody of our 3 children was granted to me. Layla was awarded visitation, but only if she could prove she could offer a safe and steady home. Additionally, she was ordered to repay a portion of the misused funds. As the ruling echoed through the courtroom, Layla's expression crumbled. Her eyes filled, tears spilling down as she covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Kyle and Samantha glanced at each other, stunned. My heart beat fast, but beneath it was something solid and final. Vindication, justice, closure. In the hallway afterward, Layla hurried up behind me. Her voice was hoarse and low. "Gavin, this isn't how I wanted it to end. I'm sorry. I made a terrible choice. But I never believed you'd cut me off like this." I turned to her, flashes of sleepless nights and unanswered pleas hitting me all at once. The way she had refused to listen, the pride, the stubbornness. "You made your decision when you put Kyle and Samantha above us," I said, voice flat. "You lied to me. That wasn't a slip-up. It was a choice, and it tore everything apart." She inhaled sharply, voice shaking. I pray one day you'll be able to forgive me." I didn't waver. "You forged my signature. You steamrolled every line I drew. Forgiveness doesn't work like that. Goodbye, Layla." Just then, Samantha stepped forward, her hand brushing my arm. "Gavin, can't you see she regrets it? She did this for me." I pulled away. "You got what you came for, Samantha. That child is yours now. If you believe Layla deserves help, you and Kyle can step up. I'm done." I walked away. They stayed behind. The hallway stretched ahead, brighter somehow, the weight I'd carried for so long beginning to fall away with each step. In the weeks that followed, Layla remained at her mother's place. The baby stayed with her until Samantha had recovered enough to take on full responsibility. Layla and I crossed paths briefly during custody handovers. She looked tired, hollowed out by remorse. She often asked about the children, I answered, but kept my distance. She searched my face for something, anything, that might show I still cared. I gave her nothing. Eventually, Kyle and Samantha took over parenting completely. Word spread that things weren't going smoothly. Kyle's hours had been reduced at work, and Samantha's medical bills were piling up fast. Layla, without financial support and clearly struggling, bounced between jobs, trying to regain her footing. As for me, I kept moving forward, leaving behind the ruins they'd created. Once the heavy fog of unresolved tension lifted from our home, the kids began to bloom. We settled into a gentle rhythm. School days flowed predictably. Weekends were reserved for spontaneous outings and warm, quiet movie nights together. The days of being jolted awake by sobs at midnight were over. The silence in our home no longer carried hidden resentment. From time to time, Layla would send a message, just a text or an email, expressing her sorrow. She'd mention how she'd miscalculated Kyle's flakiness, how Samantha's ongoing health struggles had caught her off guard. She confessed that becoming a surrogate hadn't healed old wounds the way she had hoped. Instead, it had deepened them. I kept my replies clipped and emotionless, focused solely on matters concerning the kids, schedules, pickups, school updates. One day, while my oldest was lost in their Lego masterpiece, they paused and looked up at me, eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Dad, do you still love Mom?" I crouched beside them, weighing my words. "I care about her because she's your mom," I said gently. "But sometimes, grown-ups change, and when trust is broken, It's not always something that can be fixed. That explanation seemed to suffice. They nodded and returned to their construction, content. Kids have that extraordinary clarity. They don't pretend, they don't manipulate. That's something I've always admired about them. Their honesty is pure, their emotions unguarded. Seasons turned, a full year passed. By then, the divorce was finalized, the door to that chapter firmly shut. I had kept the house, secured a stable job, and was granted custody. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Layla remained on the outskirts of our lives, unable to find a stable place in it again. Kyle and Samantha had their baby, but from what filtered back to me, the picture wasn't rosy. Medical bills piled up, money became a source of friction, and Layla received little in the way of support from them. She began to lean on her parents instead. They gave what they could, but even their goodwill had limits. Some people questioned me, wondered why I didn't step in to help her cope. She's clearly overwhelmed, they'd argue. But I always responded the same way. She made a decision that excluded me entirely. Whatever came of it, she has to face it. Those words rarely landed softly. I'd see the disapproval in their eyes, the way they silently labeled me as unfeeling or harsh. Maybe they weren't wrong. Maybe I was cold. But a marriage needs more than love. It needs honesty and mutual respect. She offered neither. So I didn't retaliate with anger or cruelty. I simply allowed her to face the storm she had summoned. I withdrew the comfort she had long assumed would always be within reach. I stopped shielding her from consequences. The courts recognized the gravity of her choices. So did life. And when people ask if I regret how emotionally removed I became, my answer has always been the same. I don't. It wasn't me who tore us apart. It was Layla. All I did was grant her what she asked for: distance. I stepped away, in every sense. I didn't pretend I could support a pregnancy I never signed up for, or pretend a shared future still existed when it had been rewritten without my input. What I gained in that process was peace, and my children. Layla, meanwhile, was left to bear the weight of a decision she believed was virtuous, one that quietly unraveled the fabric of our marriage. Carrying her sister's child transformed the woman I loved into someone I couldn't recognize, and the way I found closure wasn't by lashing out, but by letting her fully experience the outcome of her own actions. If that's considered heartless, so be it. That so-called cruelty was the cost of holding on to my self-worth, and I paid it without a second thought. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.